Somebody asked me in one of the comments why I use the McClellan Oscillator. And I guess the best way to explain that is just to take you to the learning page or the education page for the McClellan Oscillator and just read what I've highlighted here. So it's just another way of better tracking the market's momentum based on the number of stocks that advance and the number of stocks that decline. So this first chart shows you the advancers and decliners in a cumulative total. And you can see how well it tracks the market. Naturally, when the stock market goes up, there's going to be more advancers than decliners. So it's a proxy. Following the advance decline line is a proxy for the stock market movements. But it has to be more than that. We want to be able to use it as an indicator for what's behind the moves in the market. So the second chart here shows an example of daily breadth. So each tick mark represents 1 day's reading of the advances and declines. So these tick marks here, not to be confused with the little tick marks that we see on the McClellan Oscillator, but these are the raw advancers minus decliners. And then they take two smoothing averages, one with a 10% trend, the red one, and one with a 5% trend. And then they plot the difference between the 10% and the 5% line. So that would be this value minus this value. These two EMAs, the numerical difference between them is called the McClellan Oscillator. And here's the key. When the oscillator is positive, it means that money is moving into the market. More advancers than decliners, obviously. So why doesn't the A to D tell us that? Or A minus D alone tell us that? Well, it does, but by using these smoothing algorithms, we can look at trends or momentum in money moving out of the market or into the market. And extreme readings can then mean overbought or oversold conditions. When too much money comes into the market too quickly, it's overbought and similarly oversold. Now, the McClellan Oscillator can produce an indicator known as the McClellan Summation Index, which is neutral at 1,000. And right now it's sitting over 2,000. So what's important here is not just to pay attention to the numerical value of the index, but understanding its chart structure offers so much more insight. So I'd encourage you to learn more about the McClellan Summation Index, but for now we are just tracking the McClellan Oscillator, which is helping us to identify the rate at which money is moving into or out of the market. So why is that important? Well, let's take a look at the McClellan Oscillator. And these are the overbought and oversold lines in the oscillator. When the oscillator gets above this point, the market is overbought. And you can see that that happened shortly after the beginning of the year. After we had this terrible slide into hugely oversold, we whipsawed and went back very quickly into very overbought. And you see that with absolutely no pullbacks. We had all of these values and just one little pullback. When you go that high and you hit a new record for the year in terms of the oscillator, you know, that's not a good sign. And that would have told us that something is happening. And we were not following the McClellan Oscillator earlier in the year. So that's why I decided to include it in the videos. So right now we're chattering between a zero value and oversold. And we can look historically back and see when we've seen that before back here. We went back to overbought. We had a long period last summer, the whole summer played around in this zone here. So it's possible we could spend the whole summer, particularly if we have no news on the trade front, you know, in this value between 0 and oversold. Not oversold enough that the market bounces, but oversold enough that we just get complacent and nothing happens. So we want to look for these high and low values, but more importantly, we want to see how rapidly those changes occur, because what goes up fast usually comes down pretty fast. I hope that was helpful. I try to keep it under 6 minutes. If you have any questions, I refer you to the Learning Center for McClellan's publications, and all of this is free. His daily market report, which I found to be of value for a while, but he's a good teacher, so you end up learning the whole thing very quickly. So I no longer subscribe. But seeing this McClellan Oscillator chart every day and seeing what the summation index is, and also your relative volumes is important. So not only did we see decliners outpacing advancers, but it happened at a rate of 204,000 trades difference. And the summation index now, which is still pretty high at 2,000, if 1,000 is neutral, we're over 2,000, but we've got a pretty large negative summation volume. So there is a lot of cash being accumulated right now.